I've been cleaning out the block connectors. These particular ones are for the headlights, but I've done most of the block connectors all over the bike, including a lot of ones relating to engine systems, such as like coils and fuel injection and relays and all sorts of stuff. So I've been using this stuff. It's Maplin switch cleaner. Obviously you can't get this anymore because Maplin's gone out of business, but I've had this lying around for years, not really used it, so it's come in quite handy. Seems to do quite a good job of cleaning out the connector blocks. I've also kind of given the electrics a good kind of general tidy. I've kind of taped everything up with electrical tape and put, fastened things up a bit more neatly with cable ties and what have you, so I've got it all a little bit straighter, because it was a real kind of spaghetti junction, and there were like bare wires, well, not bare as in like down to the copper, but bare as in like you could see the different colours of each individual wire sort of thing. So I've, like that for example, that kind of thing going into the block connectors. So I'm trying to tape it all up as much as possible. There are some bits that I haven't done like that because they're really difficult to get at, but most of it I've kind of tidied it up a bit. And a lot of the kind of general spade connectors and things as well, like these here, pulled them apart and cleaned the contacts with switch cleaner, and I'm hoping that that's going to improve the kind of state of the electrics in general. Something that I came across on the internet, one of my subscribers, I forget the channel name, but one of the guys put an update on my last video, the one that I said I was going to sell a bike, and he put a link to a VFR 800 forum, or it might have been just a general VFR forum. And essentially what they were talking about on that forum was that the problem that I've had, like the fuel injection light coming on and all sorts of kind of jerkiness and the engine cutting out and all that kind of thing. And what they said is that it's the problem is often related to the earth block, which is a block where all the earth wires, which are the green wires, all come together and go out as one big thick wire, which is then screwed onto the chassis. And the location of this block is just in front of the regulator, according to that forum. So that's the regulator there, and if you go forward a bit, you can see the block. It was originally taped under, it's like taped into the loom like that, so you can barely see it. It just looks like a bulge. But because I knew that I was looking for a block connector and it was kind of built into the loom, I quickly figured out that that's what it was, and I just got the Stanley knife and cut the tape back, and there is the block connector. And again, what I've done is I shot a load of the switch cleaner into that to try and clean it out a bit. It doesn't actually look too bad. It's not really, like madly corroded. There's a bit of corrosion going on there. This is the cap that goes into it. It's like 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16 pins. Is that right? 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14 pins. Yeah, 2 rows of 7. Yeah, so it's 14 pins. Now, most of them, particularly the ones at this end, are reasonably clean. But some of them, as you can see, are a bit corroded. See, there's a bit of kind of like copper corrosion there. Camera's not focusing very well. There's a bit of kind of like that blue sort of corrosion that you get on copper contacts. Now, these don't actually look like copper, so I think it must be these bits that are actually corroded. But anyway, what I'm going to do is I'm going to get a knife and I'm going to scrape that out a bit, so that it gets a really good contact, and then put that back on. It just plugs on like that, and then that gives you all your earths. And apparently the bad earth can cause the kind of bad running and engine cutting out and stuff like that, as you'd expect, of course, because if you think about it, if your earth's bad, anything that goes through that earth, which is kind of like the majority of devices on the bike, which will include things like spark plugs, the ignition coils, which ultimately leads to the spark plugs, and things like the fuel injectors and what have you. So if anything cuts out in there, if you lose your contact at any point in there, your engine's going to cut out. So if it's a bad connection and it's kind of, you know, up and down, sometimes you get the current through and sometimes you're not, the engine's not going to run properly. So that could very well be the culprit for the bad running. Now, of course, the problem was it's actually not been running at all. And what I realised was it's the same problem that I had before, and that is that the fuel pump doesn't run when you turn the key. Okay, now the fuel pump on the VFR, because it's fuel injection, for some reason the fuel injected bikes have the fuel pump actually inside the tank, and all you have on the bottom of the tank is like two little male spade connectors and two female plugs go onto them. Okay, and this is them here. Right, now my friend, when he fixed the bike, he's done a nice job of these. He's crimped these connectors on and he's put heat shrink on it. So that's quite a good job. Okay, so excuse me. What I did was I tested each of those. Okay, so I put my multimeter on the green one, which is earth. So I put the earth side of the multimeter on there, and I put the positive side on the positive part of the battery, which is there. Turned it on and turned the ignition key on. Well, actually, you don't even need the ignition key because it's just earth. Turned it on. I got like 12 point whatever it was, 3 something volts or something. So it's basically the earth is absolutely fine. There's not a problem with the earth on that particular circuit. Although, having said that, it doesn't mean that there aren't problems with other earth circuits in there, because some of them are more corroded than others. So anyway, I know that the fuel pump has got earth. So then that kind of narrowed it down to the live wire, which is this brown wire here. Okay. Now, if you look at the wiring diagrams in the Haynes manual, which is here, you've got the fuel pump up there, which has got the green wire, which is obviously just earth. Anything on a, you know, in the wiring loom that's green is just earth. Okay, and they all go into the same place. They'll go down to the earth thing, which is actually just which is actually right there. It's right on the chassis, and it just bolts, just like a bolt goes through it, and then through a sort of ring kind of thing. Right. Anyway, so the other wire to the fuel pump is the live, which is the brown. Okay, and if you trace that, it goes down like that, down like that. Right. I don't know how well these colours show in the video, but basically it goes onto this relay here, which, if you look, is the fuel cutoff relay. Okay, and the other side of the fuel cutoff relay, notice that the two sides of the relay, you've got a device side, which is this side, and you've got the switch side, which is that side. Both of them come off this black and white wire. Okay, so you've got one black and white wire that splits and goes to 2 pins of the relay, device and switch side. Right, you've then got the live side of the switch, okay, which comes from, if you trace it, the ECU. Okay, so essentially what's going on here, the ECU is sending a signal down this wire to the fuel cutoff relay, which is activating the switch side of it. Okay, and that in turn is switching this side, which is then sending juice up to the pump and making the pump work. Okay, so, and the black and white, that's actually like the supply from the battery. That's where the actual juice is coming from. Okay, so basically that relay is here. Okay, this is the relay. Right, as you can see, you've got 2 black and white wires, and what I did was I put the multimeter onto those black and white wires to test them, to see if they're actually getting juice. And as soon as you turn the ignition key on, you get like 12 point something, whatever it was, 12.3, 12.4, I can't remember the exact number, but anyway, it's more than 12 volts. So those black and white wires are fine. I tested both of them and they're both perfectly fine. Now you might say, where's the brown and black wire? Well, it's not there, and the reason it's not there is because when I had the problem months ago, I discovered that that wire was faulty. So what I did was, by testing it, so what I did was I ran my own wire, which just happens to be blue because that's all I've got, and I've ran that up to the ECU, and if you look here, you probably can't see, but that's a black and brown wire there, and it's just basically crimped onto this blue wire. Okay, so the blue wire is the equivalent of the black and brown. I tested that one as well. It came out at 3.97 volts, okay, which is obviously quite a bit less than a normal 12 volt, but it'll be because it's coming from the ECU, and the ECU is sort of more of an electronic device rather than an electrical device. I don't really know much about electrics and stuff, as you probably know, as you can probably gather, but anyway. So I'm getting basically 4 volts on the blue wire and 12 on 12 and a half or whatever on the two black and white. Okay, so then I'm thinking maybe it's the relay that's faulty, so I went and got another relay exactly the same from my stash of relays, tried it, still wasn't working, put the old one back, and then what I deduced was maybe it's this brown wire, okay, that goes to the fuel pump. So I don't know if you can see here, but you've got a brown wire. I think it's black and brown actually, and that's basically the other end of this wire here, I think, which is brown. Actually, is that black and brown? No, maybe it's not black and brown, it might be just dirty. I don't know, whatever. Anyway, basically figuring that out, that's the wire, okay? So when that's plugged onto the relay and you turn the key, you would expect to get some voltage at that for the fuel pump, okay? But you don't. You don't get anything, okay? You get absolutely zero. So what I did was, I got this, which is like just a piece of wire that I had lying around, piece of red wire. Okay, so check this out. What we've got the multimeter. We've got the positive side of the multimeter connected into this wire, which is connected into that relay, the positive side of the relay, the fuel cut-off relay, that is. Then we've got the negative side here, which is plugged into the earth wire that goes up to the fuel pump when the fuel pump's there. Okay, so, and obviously it's sitting at nothing at the moment. What we're going to do is we're going to do this. Okay, so I'm going to turn that key and watch what happens. Bingo, 12.26. Okay, so that's pretty healthy. So basically I've kind of think I've found the problem. The problem is this brown wire, which is interesting because it's basically just on the other side of a relay, where there was another wire coming from the ECU which was also faulty. So excuse me, it looks to me like something has gone wrong at some point. Maybe the relay's bust or something and it's like damaged the wires, it's burnt the wires out or something. I don't really know, to be honest, but anyway, I think I've got to the bottom of it. So what I've done is I've ordered some good quality crimpers, because the crimpers that I've got are not very good. They don't seem to produce very good quality kind of crimping. That's them there. They're basically like £2 ones that I got off eBay ages ago, and to be fair, I have had a lot of use out of them. I've used them an awful lot. I did the whole CBR 900 project with these, but I thought it might be a good idea to get some good quality ones, so I've ordered some that were like about £7 something, and I've also ordered a load of spade connectors. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to try and fix it as soon as those things come, and hopefully have it running again. And that's pretty much it. And then at some point I'll probably get some block connectors as well, because these don't have block connectors on because the ends were bad, and I basically just nipped them off and put my own spade connectors on. But really they should have block connectors on. There's one here which is the same as well. Where is it? I don't know, it's here, there somewhere. So I'll probably get some block connectors at some point and do them properly. But at least get it running. That would be a good start. Then once it's running, then I can kind of start doing other bits and pieces on it. Anyway, so this video has kind of turned into a bit of a long video. It was meant to be a quick video, but it just never works like that, does it? Right, well, thanks very much for watching, and hopefully you'll see a motovlog or something on the VFR reasonably soon.